relationship like with your dad?
My dad, it's a weird relationship. I love my dad.
Mm-hmm.
If I could define myself as a daddy's girl, I would define myself as a daddy's girl. I do. He has always been there, but he hasn't always been there. Him and my mom got divorced when I was 2, and my dad had me and my brother for, I think, like a year, had full custody of us. And then I found out later in life that my mom was sneaky, and because she wanted full custody of me, she went over to his house one day to pick us up, I guess, and took pictures of, like, a kitty litter box on the floor and, you know, like, beer cans out on the table and, you know, made, like, a valiant point that he, because of his job, it would require him later in life to travel more.
Mm-hmm.
And so she won, and I lived with her from then until I graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess not technically live with her, because my junior year, or maybe it was just going into my senior year, I didn't want to live with her. She had gotten married for the 4th time.
Oh my gosh.
To this guy, Jerry, who had just gotten out of jail for, like, money laundering or something. And they lived out in, like, the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the country in North Carolina means that there's, like, 5 miles between you and the next house.
It sounds isolating.
It is so isolated. They had, like, a farm, and they had some horses, and it was just fucking scary going out there. Me and my sister one day going out there, and he was kind of creepy. He'd always ask me if I wanted to wrestle, and
What does he mean by that?
Wrestle? You want to wrestle? I don't know if he was ever being serious about it, or if it was just something he said because he was super country, or...
So you got that kind of strange vibe, like, is he kidding, or is he creepy?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, and I was a teenager, and, you know, I wore tight clothing, and I was young and fit, and...
Yeah.
You know...
A normal teenager.
You catch somebody looking at you, and you kind of just get that eerie feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he gave me. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was just mad at my mom from that point on. Because I think my mom has done this throughout our entire lives. My sister had to deal with, well, no, my brother probably had to deal with the worst of it, but my sister also had to deal with, she was very rebellious. Her and my mom didn't get along for a long time because my mom would bring men home, and she would expect for us to treat them like our dad and make them feel welcome, and, you know, just open up to them and give them hugs and kisses, and, you know, treat them like they're not a complete stranger.
It sounds like super unrealistic expectations.
Yes. And she would mold herself to be whatever type of person was closest to being like this new guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at that point, you know, this was like pretty soon after I had stopped going to church, and I, like, one day snuck and read her diary, and my first serious boyfriend was black, and she insinuated in her diary that the only reason why I was dating him was because I knew that she was against it. And so I was just doing it to be defiant. And here I was completely insulted because I loved him. Like, I mean, at the time,
Of course.
I was like, he's a good guy. He treats me right. I'm going to marry him. A teenager.
Right.
All the same, though, he was a good person.
You truly cared about him at the time.
I loved him. And it was so insulting to see her think that I was capable of doing something like that to her, to just completely be defiant. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was something about it that I just completely was like, how dare you? How dare you?
Sounds like she completely misread your intentions, misread what you were doing.
I think some of it may be, the fact that it was also around the same time that I lost my virginity, and I wasn't going to church anymore, and I don't know, maybe she felt like I was being my sister all over again. Because my sister, she has no problem with it now. My sister's married to a black man. She has 3 kids. So it's not a problem for my mom anymore. But I guess at the time that was how she was. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for her, but maybe just because of whatever she was going through herself made her assume those things.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you can be empathetic towards her and you can understand that, given her situation, that's why she would feel that way. But at the same time, it does sound kind of judgmental. Did you feel that way, like she was judging you?
Absolutely. She told me when she found out that I had, I didn't even tell her. I didn't even tell her that I had lost my virginity. I ended up getting like a yeast infection, and she then, I don't know if she read something or just assumed, because I had never gotten one before, that was the reason behind it, and she told me that God was mad at me and disappointed in me, and I was like, fuck you. That was pretty much how I felt about it. Probably just going back to feeling judged, yeah, I guess. It was, like I said, also the same time that I think I stopped going to church, and I think that also had a lot to do with it. Knowing that was the reaction from my mom.
Right.
What the reaction to my peers at church were going
to
also be like. Because I had people that I was really close to, and granted, I wouldn't have ever told them, like, I would have never shared, like, some first experiences with them, but if something like that ever came up, and I had let that slip, I would have been prosecuted there.
So it sounds like you had some relationships, but you felt like you had to be a certain way when you were around them.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't divulge, like, what you were really thinking or, like, what your real life was like.
No, not at all. They, and it's funny, too, because, one of the people that I was really close with, Sarah, she had diabetes. She had gained a lot of weight. I don't know if it was because of medication she was taking for it or what. But they started spreading rumors about her being pregnant and literally ran her out of our congregation or whatever you call it. And I never saw her again after that, and never got into contact. And I think back now and think about some of the things that they would say to try and instill something in you. And it just sounds very condescending and very, judgmental.